So I'll be honest with you. I did not watch a second of this game live. I worked 5:30 to 1, and I was so tired afterwards. I work that every Sunday, by the way. But I was so tired from a very poor night of sleep because it was too hot in here. And I just fell right asleep as soon as my shift was over. Like, boom. It was almost like I was hypnotized. And so I took a nice little nap. I went and had dinner with grandma, and then I watched the replay. I kind of thought, well, because I knew the score, I knew some highlights, but I didn't, watch the whole thing, obviously, or anywhere close. But I thought maybe it'd be less frustrating. No, not even a little bit less frustrating. Mariners lose 5-4. They fall to 49-43 on the season, and they lose 2 of the 3 games against the Toronto Blue Jays in that 3-game set. Let's go over the scoring plays. In the third inning, Victor Robles scorches a home run, 424 feet, to give the Mariners a 1-0 lead. Blue Jays answer back in the fourth with the run of their own, this one coming on an Alejandro Kirk sacrifice fly to score Bo Bichette. Ties the game at 1-1 through the fourth. Fifth inning, what I thought was going to be the death blow, or I would have thought it. I knew who they won the game. But what should have been the death blow was a 3-run homer from Mitch Garver that scored Dominic Canzone and Robles 4-1. But unfortunately, in the seventh inning, George Springer dingers homers to right center off Ryan Stanek with a couple runners on. That ties the game at 4-4 in the middle of the seventh. And then Dalton Varsho in the top of the 10th singles home Vladdy Jr. 5-4. Not a good homestand. Not a good homestand, but we'll talk about that in a sec. There are some positives. You may not want to hear it, but there are some positives. George Kirby's line isn't even close to indicative of how well he pitched in that game. 6 innings of 3-run baseball. No. I mean, that's what it ends up being. But he was much better than that line might tell you. The 8 strikeouts, the 1 walk. I did have to tweet Bumfuzzle. I did have to tweet it. I tweeted after every single walk that Kirby gives up, and I haven't had to tweet it very often. But he was fantastic today. And he's really been fantastic since the start of June. Very strong effort. 65 of 93 pitches for strikes. Challenged hitters as he always does, but wasn't just throwing the ball over the middle of the plate. I'm not saying he does that a lot, but there are times where he just gets a little too in love with trying to throw the ball by guys or getting away with backdoor pitches. And no, you got to nibble a little, and he nibbled really well while changing eye levels. He pitched well. Both did a nice job. All-star snub Andres Munoz gets the job done as well. Honestly, it's shocking to me that he didn't make it just because of the ERA. You would have thought, well, but I don't see anybody on that list. And keep in mind, everybody has to have an all-star. I don't see anybody on that list that you just go, wow, I can't believe that Andres Munoz isn't better than one of those guys. And he might be better than a few of them, but you got to keep in mind, and also just keep this in mind too, he's going to make the team. There's going to be injury replacements. The Mariners may not even want him to go to the game, to be honest with you. So that could play a factor in it too. But anyway, he was good. A couple other relievers were not so good. We'll talk about them in a second. Some offensive positives today. Mitch Garver reaches 3 times. It's the big 3-run blast. That was nice to see. He's looked pretty comfortable in that number 2 hole. Be mature. Is it ideal? No, but he sees a lot of pitches, and that's an important part of hitting second. It's not the most important part, but does give guys a chance to see what the arsenal is going to be and hit that big 3-run homer, which should have won him the game. Big dumper with a couple of hits. Tom Canzone got on a couple times and made a terrific diving catch. Victor Robles, combo meal, homer and stolen base. Draws a walk as well. I've been really impressed with Victor Robles. And I'll say, and this is not a I told you so thing, I'm just saying that I like that signing a lot more than a lot of you guys did. And I understood it. He was dreadful before his release, and he was pretty darn bad offensively the last couple of years. But he's a competent center fielder. He is a more than competent center fielder. He can make plays with his legs. And you see with that homer that he's not bereft of pop. He just hasn't made a lot of hard contact as a major leaguer since his rookie year, really. I think you need to find a way to get Robles in the lineup. Even if Julio is back in a couple days. By the way, awesome to see that he was. That's probably the biggest positive from the game. And you could argue that that positive outweighs any negatives, in my humble estimation. A lot of you will disagree. That's fine. Is that the MRI comes back clean. And, that's not only great I'm glad Julio Rodriguez doesn't have anything structurally wrong with his quad, but also because it should be a short-term thing. The Seattle Mariners really need Julio Rodriguez. They really do. If you disagree, okie dokie, but they really do. But that's a positive. I would rather have Victor Robles playing over Dom Canzone and Mitch Haniger. I don't think it's all that close. Respectfully. Yeah, respectfully. Thought about that as I was saying it. Yes, absolutely would rather have those guys playing. And the positives. Oh, I got one more. Simply Seattle. They provide the very best in Seattle sports gear. Great stuff for the Mariners, Seahawks, Kraken, Rainiers. Love the Slammin' Sammy hat. Slammin' Sammy hat. That's a tough one to say for me. Everything's tough for me to say. But it's not tough for me to shop at Simply Seattle, especially because I use code MOLLYWOP15, MOLLYWHOP15. It saves you 15% off your order. It shows you're paying attention to the show, so it's helping everybody. Helps you save 15%. Helps me, that there's a reason for Simply Seattle to continue to sponsor the show. And it helps Simply Seattle, a local business with really good people working for them. So, yes, thank you so much, Simply Seattle. Go shop. Go get some good stuff. There's a lot of really good stuff out there right now. Oh, you know what's not good? Striking out 14 times. And I don't know the actual number of how many times they've struck out at least double digits. I don't know why I couldn't think of that word either. I'll tell you why. It's because I'm freaking freezing. It's 93 degrees out, and I am freezing for the reasons I talked about in that last video. But I can't wear a hoodie again. I can't do it. I have to go outside sometimes, and it's just too hot. So I'm just going to be freezing. You can see that I'm standing a little bit further back and that I've got my arms crossed. What a weird life I live. But anyway, that little diatribe to just say, my goodness gracious, the strikeouts. And outside of that 3-run homer and the Robles homer, you can't take those away. Pretty pathetic offensive performance again. J.P. Crawford, the at-bat in the 10th inning is one of the worst I've seen all year. And I keep having to say that, every time I think somebody's challenging. Awful. Awful. I don't like that it's awful, but it's awful. Oh. Ty France was bad. Josh Rojas, I know he drew 2 walks, but my goodness gracious. Jorge Polanco. What in the heck do we do about Jorge Polanco? And I can't believe, I'm sorry for saying we, because it's not our decision. But what do you do? Because DFAing is not realistic. He's not going to accept an option to the minor leagues. You gave up a strong return for him. What do you do? Do you just keep him on the bench? Do you make him the utility player? Do you look to trade him? I wish I had a good answer. But I don't have a realistic answer other than hoping that Jorge Polanco, hate this phrase, starts playing to the back of his baseball card. It's just another offensive performance, even while scoring 4 runs, that just reminds you that they're nowhere close to matching up offensively to the best teams in baseball. Not even close. And there's some negatives on the pitching too. Look, I waxed poetically about Ryan Stanek and how much better he's been. And then he has an effort like today. That's just not good enough. Can't leave a pitch there to, even as poorly as George Springer has played this year, especially power-wise, George Springer struggling to the line of 221, 311, 361. He is not the same guy that he was just a few short years ago. But golly, you can't leave a pitch there to an MLB player. Can't. They'll crush it. And he did. He did. And it comes with a 4-1 lead. You score 4 runs with this pitching staff. You get the effort that you got from Kirby for 6+ innings. You should win 10 out of 10 times. Not good enough. And then Colin Snyder, it wasn't like that hit to win the game wasn't super hard contact or anything, and the run ends up not counting against him because of the zombie thing. But imagine saying that that would be a real thing like 10 years ago. The zombie runner scored. Anyway. Yeah, bullpen didn't get the job done today, outside of Voth and Mooney. But so that's a pretty close to a disaster of a road trip and pretty close to a disaster of a last 2 weeks. Maybe it's 3 weeks. I don't know. But, here's something positive. Thank you, Minnesota. Taking 2 out of 3. Very close to a sweep. So even through all of these struggles, the Mariners are still in first place with 70 games to go. But just watching this team right now, you have to come away saying that they're not nearly good enough. No. And I think this upcoming road trip, the final road trip of the first half, the final 6 games before the Seattle Mariners get a nice little break. I think it's huge. I think it's as big of a road trip as I can remember. Especially for it being as early in the season as it is, but it's not early. No, you need to do damage on this road trip. It's frustrating. I really thought it wouldn't be that frustrating of a watch, knowing what happened, but nope, it was. The strikeouts are just killing me. And I realize that it's 2024 and we have learned that striking out is just an out. But it's not also. It's not. When you put the ball in play, things can happen. When you don't put the ball, and I know too, on the side, I've talked about this a lot. Putting the ball in play can allow bad things to happen too. Weak contact can lead to double plays, can lead to an awful lot of outs. But nothing good comes from a strikeout. You avoid the worst case scenario sometimes with a strikeout, but nothing good comes from a strikeout. And it's just laughable that this was something that the team talked about, that the team specifically mentioned in its offseason plan to cut down on the strikeouts. No game tomorrow. I am going to post a couple of Mile Y enthusiast videos this week on the MLB draft. Really appreciate you joining. $4.99 a month. If you don't want to do that, that's okay. At least hit like and subscribe. That's the least you can do. I really appreciate it. Man. Big road trip coming up. Got to do some damage.